Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. Well, my hair says it's 100% humidity out here, but the weather app says it's only 80% humidity, but it's also raining. So here we are outside in a little bit of a drizzle doing a plant haul. It's been a while, hasn't it? I did go and do some shopping, and I actually got all of these at Lowe's, and I got them at different Lowe's. Because we have two within about a 20-minute drive from me, so they're pretty easy to frequent. So I thought I would share some plants with you. Some of them are not like brand new plants. Some of them are plants that I already have in the garden. But I want to share a little bit about each one and talk with you a little bit about how I plan to use them in my garden. Are you ready? All right, let's get started. So first we're going to start with this Limelight Hydrangea. Now you guys know I got two Limelight Hydrangeas that I used in two planters by my fountain. And yes, Limelight Hydrangea is not a new plant, but it's still a beautiful plant and it has wonderful blooms on it. Now this one is a little bit ahead of time because of the fact that it was in the nursery and grown on, so it has really nice buds on it already, just like the other two that I got. And I did clean this one up. There's a few little stragglers of leaves on here, but I pulled them all off, and I think that it looks really nice and healthy at this point. Now, if you're not familiar with Limelight Hydrangeas already, Limelights are one of the larger hydrangeas on the market. It is a really beautiful bloom. It has a huge, like, football-sized bloom on it. It comes out lime, just like the name says, and then it turns to a really beautiful white color before turning to some pinkish, greenish colors after that. In the fall. So it's really, really beautiful, and it provides great summer and fall interest, along with just a really beautiful, healthy shrub and greenery during the rest of the season. So these do get quite tall. They say 6 to 8 feet tall and wide. I've seen people though where they've grown for them up to like probably 10 to 12 feet tall. So it is possible, depending on what conditions you have, for them to be taller or smaller. So keep that in mind. These do like full sun. It is a panicle hydrangea, which means that it blooms on new wood. So anytime that you cut a bloom off, any of the new wood that grows also has the opportunity to grow new blooms. So it's super fantastic. That's one of the reasons I love panicle hydrangeas. Even if the deer come through and eat the ends off, I still have the opportunity to get some beautiful blooms. So again, these get 6 to 8 feet tall and wide, and they love the sun. They do not have good deer resistance, which I just mentioned, and they are hardy in zones 3 to 9, so they have a super huge range. And one of the other things I like about panicle hydrangeas is being hardy down to zone 3, where it gets really, really cold. That means here in a zone 5B, I can overwinter panicle hydrangeas in pots, and I have several of them in containers on my deck that I absolutely love. And as you know, if you've been watching my videos, I recently planted 2 of these in some containers that might end up staying in those containers over the winter, but we'll see. So anyways, this is absolutely gorgeous. I'm planning to actually replace one of the small arborvitaes that I have because I want to add height in that area, but the arborvitaes, if I have too many of them, they have a tendency to really be water hogs, and that means that they suck a lot of the water away from many of the other plants that might be in that planting bed. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to plant this out during the summer because this is getting ready to bloom, and once it starts to bloom, it can be a little bit more tricky to transplant. They can be a little bit more prone to kind of shocking or losing their blooms or having them desiccate. So I might have to wait till fall, but we'll see. You never know. You know how I am. A lot of times I just end up going for it. So Limelight Hydrangea, absolutely wonderful. So glad I got it. It was 50% off. So this started at $27.98, so it was around $15-ish. So the next plant I have for you is a Bobo Hydrangea. It doesn't look great, I know that, but I have transplanted them into another pot that is a little bit bigger and put some fresh soil in with them, and these really are incredibly strong plants. The roots looked very healthy. It was just the fact that these got really fried in the sun. Somebody did not water them all of the way, and what will happen is if we get successful, and I anticipate we will be, the little buds at each node that are by each leaf will actually begin to grow, and they'll push the leaves that are unhealthy right off of the stem eventually, and so we'll have nice new fresh growth on this, hopefully within like a month. So I do not plan to plant these out until the fall, or at least until they look a whole lot healthier. That way, again, I won't shock them. I am keeping them in a little bit less sun, so part sun conditions during this time that they are, you know, kind of rehabbing, because even though they take full sun like other panicle hydrangeas, during the time that they're under stress, this can help keep them from also having water stress or sun stress and that kind of thing. So it just kind of babies them as they put on some nice new foliage. So I have Bobo hydrangeas already. I have some of them in my front garden, and I'm getting myself a big mess right here. But these panicle hydrangeas are really, really pretty. Mine are all budded up right now in the garden, and so they are going to be a little bit more of a fine bloom and a little bit more open and airy, a little bit more delicate looking than some of the panicle hydrangeas, and they stay nice and small. So they are excellent for, you know, smaller gardens. They are supposed to get 2.5 to 3 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide. So a little bit lower growing and a little bit wider of a shrub, but blooms everywhere. Lots and lots and lots of blooms. They are absolutely gorgeous. Now, these grow all the way from sun to part shade, so they have a little bit more ability to take shade than some of the other hydrangeas, and I actually think that's due to kind of the delicate nature of the blooms that they have. So consider that as you're buying it, because if you are in a zone like 7, 8, 9, you're not going to want to put these probably in full sun where they bake in the sun all day. You'll probably end up with some burn on the panicle flowers, because it will just be too much for them to sustain. Also, these are hardy from zone 3 to 8, so I guess you can't actually really grow them in zone 9. Maybe you could try, but they probably wouldn't do very well there for you. Definitely, as you're in some of those hotter zones as well, you might want to make sure that you give them much more regular water. For us here in zone 5, what I can tell you is they really do great in the soil and don't require much supplemental water. They actually are fairly drought tolerant. If you have a drought while they're blooming, like I said, you might actually get some burn on the actual flowers themselves. But other than that, they're survivors, so they're pretty hardy plants. So where am I going to put these? I actually have a couple of different ideas about where I'm going to put these. Some of it involves being out in the front garden, and some of it involves being in the back garden. So I haven't actually made up my mind, but like I said, I have some time to think about it, because I'm actually probably going to plant these out in the fall as opposed to right now during the summer, and give them that chance to revive. So I'll give you an update if I can remember to, just to show you how these are doing over the course of the next month. Okay, next up is probably the plant that I was the most excited about to find at Lowe's. This is a pulmonaria, and I know many of you have had difficulty finding them, so it was really exciting to me to see it at a big box store and to be able to purchase it. This one actually is the only one that I bought for full price and not on clearance. As you can tell, it looks really good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this plant, but I wanted to buy it because not only do I love longworts, but I need more full-size plants to get into my way back garden in order for me to continue to make progress back there. Otherwise, it's probably going to take me another 5 years. Well, it might take me that long anyways. But this particular longwort is called Opal, and it has really, really light colored flowers on them. They're an incredibly light blue. They look pretty much like the color of an opal, if you've ever seen that stone. And we'll put pictures up on the screen for you guys to see this. But this will bloom in springtime, and it's a really beautiful springtime bloom, somewhat similar to like a forget-me-not bloom, but bigger. and a little bit more showy. So I really love these. And one of the awesome things about these is that they are really deer resistant because the leaves themselves are almost like Velcro. They feel kind of like the sticky side of the Velcro. And that means that the deer don't like the way that it feels on their tongues. The rabbits don't, the groundhogs don't. So it's awesome. Now, these can take a little bit of morning sun. The tag actually says 1 to 3 hours of morning sun. If this is anything like the other pulmonarias that I have, for me here in Zone 5B, I'm able to get away with probably about 4 hours of sun on these, maybe even slightly more, as long as it's not that intense, you know, heat of the day kind of sun. So late afternoon sun, or I should actually say evening sun and morning sun, are really just fine for these for me. Again, if you get into those higher zones like zone 7 and up, you probably won't be able to allow them to have any sunlight. They'll probably prefer deep shade for you. Now, the other thing that's nice about these plants is that they are drought tolerant, you guys. I absolutely love that about them because, you know, right now the weather has been so unpredictable. I mean, just think about it. We're finally getting rain after almost 2 months of just about zero rain. So it's really good to have things that can take care of themselves. They can be prone to powdery mildew if you don't make sure that there's good air circulation around and you keep them healthy. But they really do take good care of themselves, and I haven't had a significant problem with powdery mildew myself. So these grow in zones 5 and up, and the mature size on these is 12 to 14 inches high by 28 inches wide. So they're definitely much wider than they are tall, and the bloom stalks do come up above the foliage, and they're absolutely just gorgeous. So I can't wait to plant some of these in the way back garden. Again, these are very much drought tolerant, but when you initially plant them, do make sure to water them in really well and keep an eye on them, because they do seem to require a lot of water to get started initially, and then they become very drought tolerant once they're established. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot to tell you, the full price of this particular lungwort was only $9.98 a piece. So I grabbed 2 of them to put in my way back garden, and I'm looking forward to seeing the blooms next year. All right, the final plant that we have as part of this plant haul is a Jack Frost Siberian bugloss, and it's also known as Brennera, another shade plant, which I absolutely love. And it actually gets much larger than this in terms of the leaf size. The leaves grow on much better over time and begin to take on a much larger shape. Now, these were definitely a clearance plant. You can see some of the sun damage. They actually had them in full sun at the nursery, so they clearly were not reading the tags. But these are, again, 1 to 3 hours of morning sun, so similar to the pulmonaria that I just talked about. I can also get away with more sun on these than it says on the tag. And these are absolutely beautiful. They have beautiful forget-me-not-like flowers also in the springtime that are just these little blue flowers that are dainty and go up above the foliage before the true foliage really comes out on these plants. So it's something that is incredibly beautiful to see in the spring. It's just like a fairy garden. Now, these are deer and rabbit resistant as well. These also have kind of that Velcro-like feel on the tops of the leaves, so it's definitely something the animals do not like to eat. These get 12 to 15 inches high and 12 to 15 inches wide. They're a nice compact plant, so they're good for just about any size garden, and they grow on really, really well. They're fairly easy to establish, but again, do make sure that when you're planting them, that you plant them and you keep an eye on them, because they do require more water to get established, and then once you do, they are pretty drought tolerant. These are hardy down to -30, which I believe would be zone 4. So -30 to -40, so maybe even zone 3. I'm thinking it is zone 3 because I think pulmonaria is hardy down to zone 3. Anyways, these look absolutely beautiful mixed in with hostas, with the pulmonarias, with astilbes. They look gorgeous with ferns as well. And they're just a really nice, bright, silvery pop of color when you're in the deep dark shade. So a wonderful addition to anyone's garden. And this one for me is going to also go in the way back garden. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think I'm going to continue to kind of work on that path area and kind of make sure I have something alongside both of the paths, and then just kind of begin to fill in around that as things grow on and I'm able to do more dividing and transplanting, or if I come across a good deal. So these were originally marked $18.98, and they were half off of that based on the Lowe's clearance prices. And I just basically cut off all of the, really burnt foliage, so it looks pretty good already. But if you open up the inside of the plant, you can also see that new, beautiful foliage is growing within it already. So it will definitely regenerate and continue to push out some nice, beautiful leaves. I'm going to give it a little bit more time in its pot to kind of rehab. And we'll kind of watch to see when it's going to rain before I transplant these in the way back, because I can't water things super easily back there. So it's really helpful if we're also having rain. Well, I hope you enjoyed checking out these plants and hearing a little bit about my plans and where I am going to be placing them within the garden. I definitely still have some decisions to make, but I'm looking forward to getting some of this done. And hopefully I can bring you along to join me in the journey. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye! All right, guys, bonus clip. I forgot I had these in the full sun sitting out, and so these are some sun-loving annuals, and they are salvia, and I got these also on clearance. I couldn't believe they were on the clearance rack, you guys. These will bloom all summer, so all I have to do is clip off some of the spent blooms, which the calyx already look beautiful anyways. Even as the blooms come out of them, they leave behind these beautiful deep purple calyxes. Anyways, these are called Bracken Deep Purple Salvia. If you haven't tried these before, they love full sun. They definitely attract many of the pollinators. And these were originally $8.98, which on the Lowe's clearance rack and their pricing brought it down to $4 each. So I got 2 of them for less than 1. Awesome sauce, right? So these get 24 to 36 inches tall by 24 inches wide. They probably won't get 36 inches tall in my garden. I've never had them get this big. These go in full to part sun. And yeah, like I said, these are an annual. So they will only last for the summer, but I have a great idea for where I'm going to use these. I'm going to replace some bunny tails grass that is in some of my planters that are really taking up too much water and too much space. So I'm looking forward to showing you guys that. All right, now for real, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye.